The autumn rain drummed against the windows of Preston Academy's art room, as Sophia Chen watched her 8-year-old son, Oliver, sit motionless before an empty canvas. It had been 4 years since the accident that took his younger sister, and Oliver hadn't picked up a brush since that day. Not a single stroke, not even a doodle. Mrs. Chen, the voice belonged to Beatrice Harrington, head of the school's board of trustees. Her designer heels clicked sharply against the polished floor. "I need to speak with you about the new maintenance worker." Sophia turned, noting how Beatrice's perfectly styled blonde hair seemed to defy the humidity outside. "Is there a problem?" "Problem is an understatement." Beatrice's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "I saw your son near that man, Diego something. The janitor. You really shouldn't allow Oliver to associate with someone like that." Through the rain-streaked window, Sophia could see the man in question. Diego Morales was methodically cleaning the outdoor murals, his movements careful and precise despite his pronounced limp. He was perhaps 40, with graying temples and hands that bore the calluses of hard work. "Someone like what, exactly?" Sophia asked, though she already knew the answer. Beatrice's lips pursed. "You know what I mean. We don't know his background, where he comes from, and with Oliver being so vulnerable right now, we can't be too careful." But Sophia's attention had shifted. Oliver had moved. For the first time in months, her son had voluntarily stood up and was walking toward the window, watching Diego work. "Blue," Oliver whispered. The word was so quiet, Sophia almost missed it. The sky should be blue there. Sophia's heart stopped. It was the first opinion about art Oliver had expressed since the accident. Diego Morales had learned long ago that invisibility was a survival skill. 20 years of working in museum conservation had taught him to move through spaces like a ghost, preserving beauty while remaining unseen. But the tremor in his hands, a parting gift from a neurological condition that ended his career, had reduced him to this: mopping floors at a prestigious private school. He didn't mind the work. It was honest, and it kept him close to art, even if he could no longer restore masterpieces. What he did mind was the way people like Beatrice Harrington looked through him, as if he were part of the furniture. "Excuse me." Diego looked down to find Oliver Chen staring up at him with serious dark eyes. "The blue in your cleaning solution," Oliver said slowly, as if testing each word. "It's the same blue that should go here." He pointed to a section of the mural. Diego studied the boy carefully. He recognized the look, the same hollow expression he'd seen in trauma victims during his volunteer work at the Children's Hospital years ago. "You're right," Diego said gently. "Ultramarine blue. The old masters used to grind lapis lazuli to make it. Worth more than gold once." Oliver's eyes widened slightly. "You know about paint." "A little." Diego smiled. "Would you like me to tell you about the different blues?" For the next 10 minutes, Oliver listened with rapt attention as Diego explained cobalt and cerulean, Prussian and fallow. When Sophia found them, her son was holding a conversation, his first real conversation in 4 years. The following week, Beatrice Harrington called an emergency board meeting. "This is unacceptable," she declared, sliding photographs across the conference table. "This man has been spending unauthorized time with students. Look at these pictures." Oliver Chen following him around like a puppy. Margaret Ashford, the vice chair, nodded vigorously. "I did some digging. Did you know he has a medical condition? Neurological damage. Who knows if he's stable? And no one just goes from whatever he was doing before to being a janitor without something shady in their past," added Catherine Winslow, the treasurer. Sophia sat at the far end of the table, her hands folded calmly in her lap. As CEO of Chen Innovations, she'd faced down hostile boardrooms before, but this felt different, personal. "Oliver has started painting again," she said quietly. The room fell silent. 4 years of therapy, art therapy, play therapy, grief counseling, nothing worked, but somehow Diego got through to him. "Oliver painted a sunset yesterday. He used 5 different shades of blue." Beatrice's face hardened. "That doesn't change the fact that this man is a liability. We have protocols, standards. Preston Academy has a reputation to maintain." "A reputation for what?" Sophia's voice remained level, but there was steel beneath it. "Discrimination. Judging people by their job title." "Don't be dramatic," Margaret interjected. "We're simply protecting our children from potential threats." Sophia pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. "Diego hasn't noticed, but Oliver's been recording their conversations. Would you like to hear what this threat has been teaching my son?" She pressed play. Diego's gentle voice filled the room. "You see, Oliver, every great artist has felt broken at some point. The crack is where the light gets in. Your pain doesn't make you less of an artist. It makes you more human, and humanity is what makes art speak to people's souls." Sophia looked around the table. "That janitor has given my son more wisdom in a week then." "Enough." Beatrice stood abruptly. "I'm calling for a formal review. If Mr. Morales wants to keep his job, he'll need to appear before the full board next month and explain himself." Diego received the notice that afternoon. His hands trembled as he read it, not from his condition, but from a familiar rage he'd learned to suppress over the years. That evening he made a phone call he'd been avoiding for 5 years. "Dr. Elena Vasquez's office," the receptionist answered. "This is Diego Morales," he said quietly. "I need you to send my complete professional file to Preston Academy. Everything." There was a pause. "Diego, my God, we've been trying to reach you since you left the Metropolitan. The board of directors wants to offer you. Just send the file, please, to the attention of Beatrice Harrington." He hung up before she could finish. The night before the board review, Sophia found Diego in the art room, carefully arranging supplies. "Oliver asked me to give you this," she said, handing him a small canvas. It was a portrait, rough, childlike, but unmistakably Diego, painted in brilliant blues and warm browns. At the bottom, in careful letters, Oliver had written, "My teacher." Diego's eyes misted. "I haven't received a gift like this in a very long time." "Who are you really?" Sophia asked softly. Diego was quiet for a moment. "Someone who forgot that titles don't define worth. Your son reminded me of that. The board meeting tomorrow will be interesting," Diego finished with a slight smile. "You know, I've been invisible for so long, I almost forgot what it felt like to be seen. Oliver saw me. That's worth more than any job." The Preston Academy boardroom was packed. Parents, teachers, and staff filled every seat. Beatrice Harrington sat at the head of the table, radiating confidence. "We're here to discuss the continued employment of Diego Morales," she began. "We have concerns about his background, his medical condition, and his inappropriate interactions with students." She gestured to Margaret. "Mrs. Ashford has compiled a report on Mr. Morales's erratic employment history." Margaret stood, waving a folder. 5 years ago, this man abruptly left his previous position. No explanation. Clear signs of instability. "May I speak?" Diego stood at the back of the room. He walked forward with measured steps, his slight limp more pronounced under the scrutiny of so many eyes. "Mrs. Ashford is correct. 5 years ago I left my position abruptly." He paused. "I was Chief Conservation Officer at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I oversaw a team of 40 specialists, and a budget of $12 million annually." The room went silent. "I hold a PhD in art history from Yale, a master's in chemistry from MIT, and certifications in restoration from institutes in Florence, Paris, and Tokyo. I've restored works by Caravaggio, Vermeer, and Rothko. My published papers on pigment analysis are still used as textbooks in graduate programs worldwide." Beatrice's face had gone pale. "Then why? Why am I mopping floors?" Diego's voice remained calm. "Because 5 years ago, I developed essential tremor. My hands, the same hands that once restored priceless masterpieces, began to shake." "Have you ever had your entire identity stripped away, Mrs. Harrington? Have you ever been told that the thing you were born to do is no longer possible?" He pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the table. "My complete professional record, including the letter from the Mets board begging me to stay on in an advisory capacity, including the offers from Harvard and Oxford to teach, including the commendation from the president for my work preserving America's cultural heritage." Catherine Winslow fumbled for words. But you're a janitor." "Yes," Diego said simply. "I'm a janitor who chose to stay close to art in the only way I could. A janitor who recognized trauma in a child's eyes because I've seen it in my own mirror. A janitor who used 20 years of knowledge to help a boy find his voice again through color." He turned to face the room. "You called this meeting because you believed I was beneath your children. The truth is, your prejudice nearly robbed them of someone who could have enriched their lives immeasurably." Sophia stood up. "Chen Innovations would like to offer Dr. Morales a position as director of our new art therapy initiative. Starting salary, $300,000 annually. He'll develop programs to help traumatized children through art." Beatrice's hands shook as she reached for her water glass. This isn't fair," Diego suggested gently. "No, it isn't. But then again, neither was your assumption about my worth based on my job title." From the back of the room, a small voice spoke up. "Dr. Diego taught me about impasto." Everyone turned. Oliver Chen stood in the doorway, holding a new painting. "It means thick paint, like feelings. Sometimes feelings are too thick to say with words, so you have to paint them instead." Diego's eyes met Oliver's, and for the first time in 5 years, his hands were completely steady. 6 months later, the Chen Innovation Center's art therapy wing was a symphony of color and light. Diego stood before a class of 15 children, all dealing with various traumas, all finding their voices through art. "Remember," he said, his hands steady as he demonstrated a brushstroke. There's no wrong way to express what you feel. The canvas accepts everything. Through the observation window, Sophia watched with quiet satisfaction. The program had already helped over 300 children in the city, with plans to expand nationally. In the corner of the studio, a small plaque caught the afternoon light. The Oliver Chen Foundation, where broken light becomes art. Beatrice Harrington's resignation from the Preston Academy board had made waves, but not as many as the subsequent discrimination lawsuit that revealed years of prejudiced behavior. Margaret Ashford and Catherine Winslow had quietly withdrawn their children from the school, unable to face the community they'd alienated. But Diego didn't dwell on their downfall. He was too busy with the work that mattered, helping children like Oliver transform their pain into beauty. Dr. Diego, a new student, a girl who'd lost her parents in a fire, raised her hand. What if we can't make anything beautiful? Diego knelt beside her, his voice gentle. Then we make something true. Beauty comes later. Truth comes first. As the afternoon sun painted golden stripes across the studio floor, 30 small hands moved across 30 canvases, each finding their own way to speak the unspeakable. And Diego Morales, once invisible, now invaluable, guided them with the wisdom of someone who'd learned that our greatest qualifications aren't always the ones that come with certificates. Sometimes they come from the cracks where the light gets in.